Hello everyone, I am the Demented Kirby, and welcome to my channel, The Commander Tavern. The Commander Tavern is a channel dedicated to my favorite Magic the Gathering format. The Brewery is a series on this channel showcasing my spicy brews and other deck techs. On this episode of The Brewery, I'll be discussing my take on a partner pair from Commander 2020, Kazura Ruthless Stalker and Okima Stalking Shadow. Now, I usually release an episode of The Brewery for decks used in gameplay videos after the pertinent episode of the stage. However, in this case, this episode is being simultaneously released alongside the gameplay video I played it in. This was the deck I used when I was a guest on Split Second for the video that was released there along with this one here. Split Second is a gameplay channel with intense matches featuring high-powered decks and even high-power plays. I have been watching this channel since it began, and since day one, it has always been high-quality content. From their graphics, to their editing, to their skills as players, and the power of their decks. It was an honor to play games with such a talented group of content creators. You can watch that video through the link above, as well as visiting their channel. Their content is amazing, you won't regret it. If you like this deck or any of the cards I'll be mentioning throughout the video, please consider using my TCG Player affiliate link when purchasing those cards. You can find that link down in the description. It'll really help out the channel. There are other ways you can help support the channels with my Patreon. Patrons get early access to scheduled videos on YouTube, and higher tier patrons get access to the VIP section of my Discord server as well. You can find a link to that down in the description too. Alright, let's get back to the episode. Kazura is a 3/3 human warrior for 3 generic and 1 green. He has a triggered ability that puts a +1/+1 counter on any creature you control when it deals combat damage to a player. He also partners with Okima, which is why they can share the command zone. Okima is a 2/2 whale wolf with unblockable for 1 generic, 1 blue, and 1 black. It has a triggered ability that happens whenever it leaves the battlefield. Whenever it does, it deals X damage to any target and you gain X life, where X is its power. And this is why Food Chain is included in this deck. Thanks to Kazura, you can play Food Chain with Okima. I'm going to get into greater detail on this interaction in a bit. Even though this episode is going to be explaining my CEDH build of Kazura and Okima, I will still provide a deck list for a semi-competitive build down in the description. That deck list isn't CEDH, but is still strong in case you want something a bit more diluted than what you're going to see here. Having said that, let's see why Kazura and Okima are a great partner commander for a Food Chain win. Food Chain is able to generate infinite colored mana to cast creatures thanks to Eternal Scourge and Misthollow Griffin. Since you can cast either of these creatures from exile, you can cast them to Food Chain, gaining 1 net mana each time. Once you've done this an arbitrary amount of times, use that infinite mana to cast Okima from the command zone. Then you exile Okima to Food Chain, sending it back to the command zone. This deals 2 damage to an opponent. Since you have limitless mana, you can recast Okima and exile it to the command zone with Food Chain enough times to deal lethal damage to each opponent and win the game. Even though you can tutor for these pieces with the usual tutors, you can do so more efficiently and effectively with Manipulate Fate and Foresight. With either of these spells, you can search your library for both Eternal Scourge and Misthollow Griffin. The third card, exiled, is irrelevant. I usually choose a fetch land, and then exile them. Once in exile, you can cast them when you have Food Chain. Serum Powder is another way of exiling these creatures, albeit unintentionally. Since this is a combo deck, we want to try and minimize the role chance will play in the game. Having this in your opening hand with cards you're not going to need is a great way to thin your deck and also improve your opening hand. However, if you also manage to exile either Eternal Scourge or Misthollow Griffin with it, you're golden. You can also exile these creatures by happenstance when digging through the deck with cards like Tainted Pact and Demonic Consultation. Since the deck is running Tainted Pact, you can't have any card having the same name, including basic lands. This is why the deck is running 1 of each basic land as well as 1 of each basic snow land, so that there's only 1 of each card in the deck. If you're lucky, then you might exile either Eternal Scourge or Misthollow Griffin with Tainted Pact while digging for Food Chain. However, you have to really be lucky naming Food Chain with Demonic Consultation so that it's not exiled in the top 6 cards. Add to that the luck of exiling either creature before finding Food Chain with it. However, Demonic Consultation also functions as an alternate win con since the deck is running Thassa's Oracle. Trust me, banning Flash hasn't made this card any worse. But, as with the Sushi Hulk combo, if you cast Demonic Consultation in response to Thassa's Oracle's trigger, naming a card not found in your deck, you exile your deck and then draw into nothing, winning off of Thassa's Oracle. So including Thassa's Oracle here is a good way to give multiple uses to both Tainted Pact and Demonic Consultation. In fact, you can still win with Thassa's Oracle at instant speed without Flash. This requires a bit of mana to pull off though. You need to cast Crop Rotation to fetch for Emergence Zone. Then you sacrifice it to be able to cast Thassa's Oracle with Flash. Then, in response to Thassa's Oracle's trigger, cast Demonic Consultation. Kudos to Mons from CEDH TV for this combo. This is definitely a great way to bypass Flash, and each of these cards are useful in their deck on their own. In fact, since Emergence Zone gives all your spells flash until the end of the turn, you can also use it to win at instant speed with Food Chain. So with the combo pieces in hand, you can pull off a Thassa's Oracle win or Food Chain win outside of your turn at instant speed. Now, in order to provide consistency, the deck is running some tutors apart from digging through the deck with Tainted Pact and Demonic Consultation. Vampiric Tutor and Mystical Tutor are cheap and instant speed ways of tutoring for combo pieces at the end of the turn before hours. Unfortunately, you have to reveal what you search for with Mystical Tutor, so use it only if you're able to protect what you tutored for. But more on that later. Although not a tutor per se, Lim-Dûl's Vault is yet another instant speed way of digging through the deck like Tainted Pact and Demonic Consultation. Although it costs 2 mana to cast, you can cast it at the end of the turn before yours to dig through your deck until you find what you're looking for and then leaving it on top of the library. You lose 1 life each time you repeat this effect beyond the first, but it's worth it if you're going to find that combo piece to end the game. Thankfully, Demonic Tutor is another relatively cheap tutor. Even though it's at sorcery speed, you don't have to reveal what you tutored for, so it definitely helps in assembling the combo. In any case, consider it making your game-ending combo piece cost 2 more to cast. We can also dig through the library the usual way by just drawing a bunch of cards. Opt, Brainstorm, Serum Visions, Sleight of Hand, and Gitaxian Probe are all 1 mana ways of drawing a card. Opt and Brainstorm are best since we can cast these at instant speed to dig for answers. But the sorcery speed ones are good because we get to peek at things besides drawing a card. With Sleight of Hand, we can draw the best card of the top 2 cards. Oh, since it puts it into our hand, we can also bypass anything detrimental that triggers on us drawing cards. We can scry 2 with Serum Visions, and we can look at an opponent's hand with Gitaxian Probe, which, more often than not, costs 0 mana and 2 life to cast. So it's essentially free. Impulse is another great instant speed draw spell. It costs twice as much, but we can look 4 cards deep into the library and choose the best card of those 4. So it's definitely another amazing draw spell in the deck. Apart from these, the deck's also running the usual suspects of Stroke of Genius and Pull from Tomorrow. The reason Blue Sun Zenith is omitted in this case, odd for my deck text I know, is because maintaining triple blue available to draw cards is going to be difficult to pull off, especially if we want to keep enough blue mana available for counter magic. That being said, being able to cast these for enough mana at the end of the turn before ours can fill our hand with responses and answers to protect our combo if we have it on hand or almost have it assembled. We can also synergistically draw cards thanks to Sea Dasher Octopus, Ninja of the Deep Hours, and Ingenious Infiltrator. For more grindy games, it's worth it to cast Okima and start poking with it since it's 2 unblockable commander damage. However, if we can flash in the Octopus, mutating onto Okima in response to damage, we can be drawing a card for as long as it's alive and able to hit opponents. The ninjas are also useful in bouncing Okima as well as getting in for damage and drawing a card. If we manage to get through with them, we can also draw cards off of them during combat. The ninjas are also good at resetting Thassa's Oracle if someone countered Demonic Consultation when you cast it in response to Thassa's Oracle's trigger. That way it's not there just doing nothing after the fact. So the ninjas are good here. Besides mutating the Octopus onto Okima, we can also enchant it with Ophidian Eye for similar results. It costs 1 more to cast than mutating the Octopus, but it also has flash, so it's a good way to take advantage of timing. I am also including Reliquary Tower in this deck, but not Thought Vessel, since that rock is slow in this deck. However, Reliquary Tower doesn't take up a slot, and I don't want to lose any cards during my cleanup step if I have enough card draw spells and counter magic in my hand to come out on top of counterspell wars when protecting my game-ending combos. Now that I mention it, here are the counter spells in the deck. Fierce Guardianship, Pact of Negation, and Force of Will are the free ones. Force of Negation is not included in this build since more often than not we're going off in our own turn and it is not free during our own turn. Technically, Mental Misstep is also a free counterspell if you pay 2 life for it, which is great to deny those early game Mana Dorks, Soul Ring, and Mana Vault. However, it's also a great way to counter opponents' Swan Songs, Dispels, etc. for free as well. So it pulls double duty here too. It isn't the only one costed counterspell either. The deck's running our own Swan Song, Dispel, Flusterstorm, Nyx, and Stifle. Swan Song and Dispel are pretty much included for the same reason, countering counterspells. Flusterstorm isn't worth countering since it has Storm and it copies enter the stack when cast, so it's great to cast near the end of a counterspell war. However, Nyx and Stifle are amazing counterspells that should be getting more attention. Nyx is included because now even more spells are free in the format thanks to Commander 2020. Having it just in case is more common than you think. It can be used to counter Moxes and Mana Crypt, as well as countering any free counterspell like Force of Will, Force of Negation, Pact of Negation, etc., and cheated spells that were cast without paying their mana cost. So it can definitely pull its weight. Stifle is even more useful now thanks to Thassa's Oracle and other cards that win off of triggers. Once Thassa's Oracle hits the field, it's very difficult to deal with since its ability is already on the stack. But Stifle gets rid of that and you might have the opponent just deck themselves instead. So instead of countering their win cons, just let them cast them and just counter Thassa's Oracle's ability instead. The 2-costed counterspells are Negate, Counterspell, and Mana Drain. Having them round out a suite of counterspells is fine since they can definitely help us win or prevent an opponent from winning. That being said, 2 mana should cap the cost of your counterspells. Imp's Mischief is technically the last 2 mana counterspell in the deck. In a counterspell war, you can use Imp's Mischief to change the target of an opponent's counterspell to a different counterspell, thus dealing with both of them at the same time with a single card for 2 mana. So Imp's Mischief is definitely some spicy tech that I hope more people use. We can also just prevent opponents playing in our turn altogether with Tidal Barracuda. This isn't a creature many players would want to counter or get rid of early game because it helps them as well. However, once it's there and it's your turn, they won't be able to stop you from comboing off unless it's via an ability, but they won't be able to cast any spell to stop you. Other responses in the deck is to prevent opponents from winning before us, apart from our slew of counterspells of course. Beast Within, Deadly Rollick, and Cyclonic Rift are instant speed responses to deal with things. Beast Within and Cyclonic Rift can pretty much deal with almost any permanent that might help an opponent win the game. Deadly Rollick has the potential of being cast for free, so it can at least get rid of any creature component of a combo without needing to keep mana up. You just have to control either Kazur or Ukima, which makes it even better since you have 2 potential creatures to make it cost 0. As for recovering our own things if we lost them for whatever reason, Snapcaster Mage, Eternal Witness, and Riftsweeper are included. Snapcaster Mage can be used to recast any counter spell for 2 more mana, but it can also be used to recast Demonic Consultation if it was countered. Riftsweeper is included just in case we exile something by accident that we needed, if it was in the top 6 cards and named with Demonic Consultation for example, or if an opponent exiled it. Eternal Witness can be used to recover anything from our graveyard, so it's great for more grindy games. The good thing about these creatures is that since they're creatures, they can also be exiled to Food Chain to cast other creatures. In fact, this partner pair also helps in the grindiest aspect. Kazur makes Ukima cumulatively bigger each turn it gets through. Poking the same opponent can really add up. You'd be surprised how many games are lost by a life or 2, so it's good to have a partner pair with multiple uses readily available in the command zone. However, although good to have side plans for grindier games, the deck still wants to win as quickly as possible. Since the deck aims to be fast, it's running fast mana. Chrome Mox, Mox Opal, Mox Amber, Mox Diamond, Mana Crypt, Mana Vault, and Soul Ring provide just that. However, the deck isn't just running these cheap mana rocks, but cheap mana dorks as well. Birds of Paradise, Llanowar Elves, Elvish Mystic, and Fyndhorn Elves. Each costs 1 to cast, so getting these turn 1 is an amazing drop. In any case, they can be tapped for mana and then exiled to Food Chain to take even greater advantage of their purpose of providing mana. Bloom Tender is an amazing mana dork here since it has the potential of tapping for 3 mana for its 2 mana cost. In the 2 mana slot we also have Farseek, Nature's Lore, and 3 Visits, my go-to trifecta for ramping into dual typed and now triple typed lands. These are cheap enough that I feel could be included so that you can still be on turn 4 when everyone else is possibly still on turn 2 or 3. The rest of the deck are just the lands. The deck's running all 10 fetch lands, all 3 dual lands, all 3 shock lands, all 3 pain lands, both Horizon lands, Command Tower, City of Brass, Mana Confluence, Exotic Orchard, Reflecting Pool, Zagroth Triome, Ancient Tomb, and Crystal Vein, as well as one of each kind of basic land and snow basic land as mentioned earlier because of Tainted Pact. The deck's also running Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth so that our fetch lands can at least tap for black mana in case our life is too low to risk cracking fetches. This brew is just an idea of how to build around Kazur and Ukima. Since Ukima triggers when it leaves the battlefield, all you need to win the game is Food Chain and either creatures castable from exile, so as long as you can protect your combo you should be able to win. Either way, the deck is also suited for grindy games since Ukima is unblockable and presents a clock as well. In any case, you can also win the usual black-green-blue game with Thassa's Oracle's trigger. So if you're looking for a new twist on CEDH Food Chain, you can brew it around this partner pair. If you're interested in the deck list of this spicy brew of mine, you can find a link to it down in the description. Recall also that I brewed a semi-competitive build around this partner pair, which is also linked in the description. I would like to thank all my patrons for supporting me, and a quick shout out to all my higher tier patrons, the brewers, for their patronage. I'd also like to thank anyone using my TCG Player affiliate link. That also helps out the channel. I also want to once again thank Split Second for having me over and playing a game on their channel. It was definitely a fun experience, so remember to check them out. And to everyone, thanks for watching this episode of The Brewery on the Commander Tavern. I am the Method Kirby, and happy brewing.